Good evening and welcome to our Planning Commission meeting for January 21st. If you can all stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Rosa Holloway.
Here.
John DeLulo.
Here.
Maria Carney.
Here.
Dr. Jeff Rivera.
Here.
And Brandon Whaley provided notification of his absence this evening, so he has an excused absence. Carmelo Oquindo.
Here.
Tabitha Rubin.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum, and this evening, Mr. Oquendo will be a voting member of the commission at the conclusion of the agenda items.
Thank you. Do we have approval of the minutes?
I move for an approval of the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
I have an approval.
What's the date? We got to say the
Yes.
date. Okay, December 17th, 2019.
Motion made by Ms. Holloway and second by Mr. Oquendo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. First case on the agenda, we have Article 3, Division 19, Sign Regulation, Article 3, Division 20, Section Temporary or Mobile Vendors, Table 3-7, Commercial and Industrial Use, CDA 19-0004, LCD Amendment.
Good evening. I'm Trevor Bedford, Senior Planner. This case is an LDC amendment. The case is against CDA 19-00004 and it's ordinance 2020-08. This ordinance will add mobile food vendor regulations. It will also revise and clarify the sign code regarding strips of lighting around windows and other architectural elements and electronic variable message signage. This also clarifies and simplifies some uses on the use table. We believe that this meets the strategic plan goal of growth management. The staff has reviewed this and recommends approval of this ordinance, and we request that the Planning Commission also recommend approval. I'm here if there are any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? You do. Go for it.
I had some questions, Trevor, on the mobile food vendors. Some of the verbiage in the final, let me get there, sorry.
Question.
On item B, it says mobile food vendors shall not be located on vacant property. And then C says mobile vendors should be located entirely on private property. And I guess in my mind, if somebody owns a vacant lot and that's their private property, that's kind of a conflicting statement. So I just wanted some clarification on that.
Okay, so basically the way this was written, the mobile food vending, I believe it was a city council workshop, or they had asked that it be initially implemented as kind of an accessory use to an existing business. Mm-hmm. So the idea is kind of that an existing business may have a food truck in the back or on the side of the business. So that's why they didn't want it to be on vacant property. That way there has to be a business there already.
Maybe this should be spelled out.
Yeah.
Because this is rather vague.
I found it very vague when I was like, it just kind of conflicts with C in my mind when I'm reading it. It conflicts with item C on the.
It should be spelled out under C that private property, occupied private property, or like you said,
Existing business.
It should be an existing business, or, something like that.
We do
But
say-
you need to spell this out.
Sure, we do say in the header there in one, we do say that it would be allowed as an accessory use, so that does mean that there would have to be an existing approved use at the site already.
It still is, it's vague. She's right, it's vague.
Okay.
I had another question also. Sorry. On item D, it says mobile food vendors should not be visible from any named public roadway, and screening from view shall not be required from alleyways. I understand the alleyway section, but visible from any named public roadway, I mean,
That's what the whole thing is all about, right?
yeah, I mean, and I understand you do have a section in there about special event permitting and so forth, but even as far as like special business or like, and as an accessory to a business, like there is always going to be some visibility from the roadway unless you have it butted up to the backside of the building. So I just find that also not clear.
Yeah, say for instance, if somebody wants to do anything on New York Avenue and they close off the road and they got the local businesses, plus they have to say on Friday nights on once a month. So that would not be allowed then.
That falls under the special events permitting, correct?
That would probably be considered a special event if it's closing off the road, yes.
So, but if you're talking about an existing business bringing a food truck to their existing business, the way I read this, they would have to have it like
Hidden.
butted up to the back of their building so that it couldn't be seen from the roadway. So,
Right. That is how this is. That's how this was
That's the
written.
intent
Yes.
of the
Yes.
language.
Yes.
okay,
Intent
well,
there
then
is.
that makes it virtually impossible.
Yeah, the intent for a business to have a food truck come onto their property is to draw people. And if you have to hide the food truck, it deceives the purpose for them to even put an event on with a food truck if it can't be advertised. And being, that food truck being visible, that's their advertisement.
Sure.
Well, again, if I could interject, Mr. Chairman, and Commission members, the feedback is fine, and obviously Mr. Bedford can take the feedback and so forth as the amendment process goes through. Some of this is interpretive, and so it's not going to affect your overall, moving this through other than with your feedback as thoughts you have as to what language revisions might be considered by the council before it's adopted. So this is something to be taken. This is feedback that you can forward as you take it through the process. Because just subjectively as an attorney, but I don't think it's inconsistent to state that the food vendors shall not be located on vacant property, meaning that there's nothing on that property, it's just raw land, and that the intent is that it not be on raw land, that it be tied to an existing operation. So the fact that it's got to be located entirely on private property, but not on raw land, that does not seem inconsistent to me. I understand as you read it,
It just seems
But what if
conflicting.
that raw land is being used as a business for a parking lot?
but it's not. It's just vacant property. So to me, that's vacant land. That's how I'm reading it.
Including a parking lot?
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
vacant land.
It's still considered vacant.
I don't think a parking lot's considered vacant property.
But
under the
vacant could
definition
be
of the
owned by the
code.
owner of the business.
There is one food truck already in town that parks in the BB&T bank at the end.
So that would not be allowed because it's visible
Well,
from
it's been
the-
there for almost
Right.
30 days.
Yeah.
Is vacant property, does a parking lot fall under vacant property?
I'm not certain.
To me, it does not.
No,
It's a parking lot which is attached to some sort of an operation similar. To me, that doesn't strike me as vacant property.
No,
but-
then-
but-
Vacant property to me is some sort of raw land is what I think of.
Right.
Or some, without any improvement on it, that doesn't have a going concern on that property.
Right, we do require that all parking for businesses needs to be on the same property as a business, so we shouldn't really have any parcels that are just parking lots.
But having said that, the feedback obviously has merit to it. You
Right.
can just forward it on for whomever. It's, just as I read it, I may read it differently than someone else, doesn't matter.
But
It doesn't
see,
mean I'm
Well,
right.
but that's part of the, that's, in my mind, that's part of the problem, because if we pass it and it goes to zoning, and a zoning person is interpreting this differently than the intent, then somebody gets cited, and, you know, and that's how we ended up with the whole revision of the lighting for the signage, because there was an interpretation, and a lot of people were written citations, and I was at the city council meeting when that happened, and it was a fiasco. So in my mind, the verbiage needs to be clear up front, and less room for personal interpretation.
Sure. And that's-
Since we're redoing it, we may as well redo it properly so it's it could be understood by anybody.
Sure.
See, with the food truck on vacant land, okay, so if somebody has a vacant piece of property and they want to do a fundraiser for something, so this property couldn't be used for that.
Not without a special event permit.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
And then I had one other question, Trevor.
Sure.
Item F says, the license shall meet any licensing and inspection requirements of the fire department, state of Florida, and any other government entities. Is that referring to the, fire department's new inspection fee?
Yes, I know the fire department is working on some inspection program that they would inspect multiple times within a 6-month period for a food truck, and they've requested that they inspect food trucks anytime they set up. So, but I know that's a program they're starting, so we kind of made the language there a little bit flexible in case they, as the program goes along, they change a little bit of how they do the inspections.
Now, the businesses usually get inspected once a year. So
Right.
why are we trying to, I mean, this is a business, so why are we trying to inspect the food trucks more than once a year?
The food trucks have to be inspected every time they're set up because they have propane. So they have to be set up to make sure that they don't have any propane leaks. And I know this from doing events with Main Street. They have to be inspected each time. But as of October 1st, we have new fees put in place for the fire inspections, for the fire marshal, chief, whoever comes and does the inspection. And the fire truck, or the food trucks are charged $41. Their inspection fee is good for 6 months, from my understanding. So they only have to pay the fee once every 6 months.
It's all about the fee.
It's all about the fee. So, but
Yeah,
they pay the fee once every 6 months, but every time they're inspected, they can be inspected multiple times during that 6-month period, but they only have to pay the fee one time during that
Okay, well,
6-month
that-
period.
You know, that's not too bad.
That's the language of G talks about the annual permit being required, but I don't see a time limit being
Because
imposed on.
that's in the Parks and Recreation.
Right, but I'm just referencing the licensing and inspection requirements. It's just stating that the mobile food vendors should meet licensing and inspection requirements as required. It doesn't set a time frame or, and I'm not. like I
No,
said-
but I was explaining to them, because I'm on the Parks and Rec Committee also, so I was explaining to them the Parks and Recreation, the new fees that Trevor referenced. Those were the only questions I had.
So no additional signage shall be allowed. So that means that they can't put a sign out there and saying, whatever food truck is here.
Right, unless they had some kind of changeable copy sign already.
Are they able to put a menu sign out in front? Because a lot of them have like
No, I
easel
think-
signs that have
So-
their menus.
I think this refers to the property.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll explain a little bit about that though. So the no additional signage allowed is basically referencing signage visible from the right of way. Any signage that doesn't need engineered drawings, that's not visible from a right of way, is exempt from permitting right now. So since the food trucks as it's written currently, cannot be visible from a right-of-way. Any kind of menu signs they would have would be exempt from permitting.
Yeah, I think this needs some reworking here.
And I did see where you were putting hours on the signs that are, like the LED signs that are being out. Do you putting business hours on them so they can't stay on after a certain time?
We're not making a change to that portion of the EVM signage. I believe it, I don't know the exact time frame, but there is a requirement that at a certain time, EVM signs need to be turned off unless the business is open. If the business is still open and operating, open to the public.
I think it's
then the
between
signs-
7 AM and 9
7 a.m.
PM.
and 9
Yeah,
p.m.
I believe
Unless,
that's it.
unless the business is in operation outside of those times.
Right. But the change we're making to the EVM signage here is including a brightness standard, so that, you know, because right now we could have an EVM sign that's very bright until 9 PM.
Oh, we have one.
Yeah,
Yes.
Right by the police department.
under section 5, yeah, I know you do. In section 5 on 2, that's where it says 7 AM to 9 PM.
Okay, yes, that's just showing what, there it is. That's just showing the existing language. So it's not, that language is currently adopted, it's not being changed.
Any other questions, comments?
I know one of the people who previously spoke about the signage, she owns the daycare at the corner of Furtick and Canoe Creek. And she does often put community messages, like if we have like an emergency, like hurricane message type thing come up. She does do community service messages on her board, and I didn't see any type of exemption for those type of messages.
We don't have one.
And no plan for one. I know that was specifically brought up at the city council meeting.
We had a city council workshop on this, and the direction that we were given was to add brightness standards, and there wasn't any discussion at that council workshop about community messages.
So her business closes at 6, so then at 9 PM, she's expected for her lights to go out on her sign. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did we address these flashing, you know, right by the
Yeah, the flashing.
police department? I mean, you know, it's like all you see is the sign, you don't even
Right.
see the traffic anymore.
Right, that's what the brightness standards are intended
Yes.
to bring that down.
Section F, Rosa says, no flashing lights, traveling messages, animation, transitional effects, or other movements.
On F, okay, thank you. Yeah, that sign was pretty bad, you know.
Yeah, no, I've seen it after 9 o'clock on.
Yeah. Now, if they can leave it on, if the business is still open, are they still open? at
No.
that time?
It's a realty.
I know. Yeah, I'm just a little concerned about the food vendor, the way this is written. I would like for you guys to rework that a little bit and maybe come back with it.
Well, I think procedurally, whatever motion and feedback that commission will give to the city will be taken, whether it's to recommend approval with the suggestions that have come from the commission or recommend it not be approved with the suggestions, and then it's going to move on to the next stage. But the feedback is going to be taken either way. But you're making a recommendation in an advisory capacity this evening.
Right, any kind of recommendation that you give will be presented to city council.
Correct.
But if we pass it tonight, then it passes with this verbiage that's in here, correct?
You're recommending approval of the Land Development Code amendment, but this is hypothetically, I'm thinking, if you're either going to do one of two things, recommend that you not approve with your feedback, or recommending approval with the condition that some of these areas of language be fleshed out. Either way, the feedback's going to go back to the council. So it's going to be up collectively up to the five of you to, Ms. Rubin's not going to be
I'm not
voting
voting.
tonight,
Oh, you
I
can't
can't
vote.
vote.
so,
I was just bringing my concerns
Yeah.
forward.
rightfully so.
Any other questions? Comments? Do I have to open to the public?
Yes,
Yep.
Any public
yes.
comments?
Call for the public comments.
We close to the public comments. Back to the commission, any final thoughts, questions, ideas, recommendations? Well, if there are none, then do I have a motion to approve or disapprove?
I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2020-08, and for city council or whomever to
Council.
consider changing or making some changes and making it more clear about the food vendor, especially here in section 6, B, where it says vacant property, is parking lot considered a vacant property? And on C, where it says located entirely on private property, it should specify that, it's for an event with another business. I mean, it just needs to be more clearer. And then in D, where we have the road, that the food trucks can't be seen from the road, that would kind of serve the purpose for any business to bring a food truck in if it can't be visible from the road. So, that's, it just needs to be clearer, so we all know
So, Ms. Holloway, can I?
what's going on.
So your motion, if I can reiterate, your motion is to recommend approval of the ordinance, but with the suggestion that some revisions take place under section 6, sub 1, letters B, C, and D with regard to the
It
language
needs to be
to clarify
clarified.
and make more consistent the references to vacant
Yeah.
property, private property,
Yeah.
and the visibility from the main public roadway.
Yeah, where it says private property, well, all property unless it's city-owned is private. So even vacant land would be private property. So you need to just spell it out, what their thoughts on that. If it's, if a business has to be on the property, then, say it on property adjacent to the business. But also, it's unrealistic with the food truck not being visible from the road right away. Okay, that's unrealistic. Why would anybody bring a food truck in if it can't be seen? So that's the whole purpose, to bring people in. So,
I have a motion made by Ms. Holloway. Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
I have a second made by Mr. Quendo. All in favor?
aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0.
There's five of us.
5-0.
Mr. Dillon, was that an aye from you as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so all five were aye? Okay. Motion carries 5-0.
Anything else on the agenda?
Madam Clerk.